Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Big West Mafia Show, part of the College Football Mafia. I am your host, Sergeant Pickles, and with me, as always, is the fantastic Becky Go Huskies. How we doing, Becky?
Doing good. Doing good.
Another beautiful week in the Pacific Northwest as we complain about 85-degree weather and the rest of the country is baking on fire, but I digress. It's good to enjoy a little bit of sunshine here, and right off the top of the show, we're just going to throw straight into it because, play the breaking news sounder. Burr, 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 burr. Our
Dun,
good
dun, dun,
friend
dun,
Ryan Willie
dun.
getting straight after it, much like all of the Badger fans will be this season. Camp Randall will sell alcohol to statistically one of the drunkest states in the country. I can't wait for that revenue bill for the state. I'm sure they're going to be rolling in the dough, but how we feeling about our Badger friends finally getting with the times?
Jump around is about to really jump around.
Yeah, jump around's about to be a jump around, slip around, fall around, lay on the ground around. A lot of everything up there.
A lot. That's this is great because now we can you can just get wrecked before the stadium and then go inside and buy a beer. Hopefully the beer is cheap. Ryan, did they tell you what a price would be? I mean, is there any?
Yeah, I regret not bringing it, but I had a breakdown of the average beer prices across college football, and the Big Ten was surprisingly high up the list in quite a few of them.
I mean, like, I think ours are like $9 at Husky Stadium, but
yes,
they usually run out by halftime anyway. Prepackaged alcoholic products.
I'm assuming that means mixed drinks in pre-made containers of the sort, is how I understood it.
I'm assuming. Washington has that. I think we have, if I'm not mistaken, we have boozy Frosties or something like that certain times of the year.
Well, that sounds like a lot of fun, and we are advocates for responsible fan drinking. If you drive, don't drink. If you drink, don't drive, etc., etc. If you're an away fan, you can have a little fun, but don't get too rowdy and make a bad name for your team. But it's good to see Wisconsin will have a little libations for people in the stands. So
I want to see a beer snake. They better do a beer snake from like the field to the like rafters there. They better do a field like a beer snake.
They'll have a beer snake that crosses the gap to the second deck. I have no doubt. But
I have no doubt.
I know that Ryan's excited, and I'm definitely excited for my first trip to Camp Randall. I'll have to.
Yeah.
More than $9, says Ryan as a follow-up. Yeah, I guess if you supply and demand, if you're the only business in town, you can kind of charge whatever the heck you like. But thank you so much for the donation, Ryan. I appreciate it. And no one is more excited than you to see the restrictions, the un-Americanness of no alcohol at college football finally lifted at Camp Randall. So thank you so much to our early people in chat that hopped in early. We got Timothy Green, as always. Ryan was here at 1:30 to give us that super chat. He was so excited about the news, so thank you for that.
Thank you, Ryan. Thank you.
Yep. Patrick Weigel or Weigel, apologies if I mispronounced the name. That would be alcohol abuse. Imagine all from Skaven. Yes. Imagine all the beer that we spilt during jump around. It'll be a torrential flood down the stairs. Big Lubbock coming in 6th. Bob Swinger, good evening to you, sir. Our favorite Big Ten hater, as always, the almighty Shonsky. How we doing, sir? Oh, goodness. In Big Lubbock, did y'all hear the SEC made it official? Longhorns will be Tex and Tennessee will be UT. Man, this is one of those weird things where I'm surprised Texas didn't get their way, but we'll see how they are received in their first season. And somewhat getting into it. Oh, goodness, I've completely lost my train of thought. But we try to avoid, the hot button topics of politics and religion. But, it's been quite an interesting week here in the good old US of A. And I feel like our friend Zachary kind of summed it up quite well for us. That Joe Biden has indeed entered the transfer portal. And I wish him nothing but good luck as he goes to whatever university finds him and gives him a giant fat NIL check to ride off into the sunset.
I hear it's Delaware.
Delaware.
Delaware. Yeah.
Getting
Delaware.
5-star political transfer Joe Biden.
Yeah. He's going to put Delaware on the map.
We'll go with
what I was hearing.
And the other counterpart to this that I thought was absolutely hysterical is, according to some Vegas odds makers, Nick Saban is 250 to 1 odds to be the VP pick.
Oh my God.
I can't believe that that's real, but it is apparently. It's long odds for Mr. Saban, but as Reddit CFB points out, the press conferences would be absolutely legendary.
They would be the most ridiculous. Like him and Belichick would be the two that I would be like, yeah, we got to have Belichick on there. Like, because the questions would be like, what are you talking about?
You could charge money for that every week and people would pay just to watch it.
Oh my God. Like, pay-per-view would be like insane, especially if the U.S. went to war. Oh, what's the president planning? I don't know. You guys are sitting out here asking me about Tennessee. I don't know. What's Tennessee doing this week?
Indeed. But yes, we would certainly pay money to see Saban throw into the political ring, just because I think it would be hilarious. That is as far into politics as we will dive. We try to stick to college football and other silliness as much as we can around here. A couple more people joining us, some of our regulars. Daniel Gygax, hello, my friend. And Timothy Green, heard he was transferring to Washington Huskies. I'm sorry, that's hashtag fake news because he can't find Seattle on a map. But yeah, Delaware. I think Delaware Blue Hens are the 247 crystal ball for our good friend, Mr. Joseph Biden. Yeah. Oh, and speaking of Mr. Nick Saban, it feels like in college football there's so much history and tradition that it's kind of funny to see certain things come around and you're like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. But it will now be Saban Field at Bryant-Denny Stadium. And you think back to 99% of these college footballs, stadiums have names upon names. That's why it's Bryant-Denny Stadium. But do we think it's well-deserved for our good friend Nick Saban to be honored by the Tide?
Yeah. I think it's I mean, what are you gonna do? Like Bryant-Denny is the stadium is, he accomplished, I think, as much, if not more, than Bear Bryant, but you still have to honor Bear Bryant. And
yeah,
obviously Denny, I think, was the original name, but Saban Field is perfect, like, because it'll be on the field. It'll probably say Saban Field. So who's it? Pauley Pavilion, UCLA. It's the court is named after
John Wooden.
John Wooden and his wife Nell. But that was John Wooden's thing. He's like, I want my wife to be honored too because she put up with me doing this all those darn years. But yeah, like it's great. Husky Stadium is Husky Stadium, but it's Alaska Airlines Field. So.
Well, I guess that's my worry. Do we think it's one of those things where on paper it's going to be Saban Field at Bryant-Denny, or is it going to be actually well known as a thing unto itself?
No, it'll be Bryant-Denny. Nobody's going to not call it Bryant-Denny. I asked a friend about this earlier, and he's like, I don't see my dad changing the name from anything but Bryant-Denny. He's a season ticket holder. He's like, he's not changing it. So I was like, okay.
Yeah. Daniel Gygax, Belichick's D coordinator in Cleveland with Saban. He'll be mainly remembered as the defensive backs coach at West Virginia. Indeed. That'll be etched onto his plaque in the Hall of Fame. I have no doubt, Daniel.
I thought it would be remembered for being a graduate assistant at Kent State University, his alma mater. Where he got his first job from some random head coach.
Indeed, a little known figure named Don James.
Yeah, I can't figure out who that guy is. So yeah, he'll be fine. Like I think it'll be great for Alabama, but nobody in Alabama or the SEC is going to call it anything but Bryant-Denny.
Yeah, these are the kind of funky off-season news type deals that you get, and some of them are cool, some of them are kind of more so footnotes. But I just think it's interesting when schools kind of, they need a little PR. Not that Alabama's struggling for it, but I don't know, of all the renaming and branding and corporate whatever we see going on in college football, I think it's still nice to see a legendary coach honored in a way.
Agreed. I mean, what else can you do? Like, they've had 2 legendary coaches in their history. Like,
no two of the, like, arguably top 20 coaches of all time.
I mean, USC's had 2, but they're like their second one is not on par with either one of them, because he left after 10 years and was coaching in the pros, where he achieved a Super Bowl ring. But outside of that, it's like, I don't know. Nebraska hasn't done it. Oklahoma hasn't. I guess Oklahoma kind of tried, but like they didn't do it. Barry Switzer and
our friend Nebraska Rascal brings up Memorial Stadium, which I've always known it as that.
Named the field Tom Osborne
Field, but no, you'll always call it Memorial Stadium.
Exactly. Like, yeah, it's great. Tom Osborne's done that. Like I was just saying, Pauley Pavilion in basketball is Pauley Pavilion. We don't call it, Nell and John Wooden Court. Yeah. Nobody calls it that. Like it's never called Wooden Court or anything like that. It's Pauley Pavilion. So
our friend Keep Chopping, our Rutgers friend. What's next though? The DeBoer locker room, Saban Field at Bryant-Denny Stadium.
Sure.
That would personally mortify me because it means DeBoer actually had some decent years at Bama, but I digress. They'll name, the DeBoer locker room, the DeBoer press box usually gets named after a legendary broadcaster, but I don't know, the DeBoer practice field at Alabama.
Yeah.
Something in that effect.
DeBoer Indoor Stadium.
Hopefully it's the DeBoer Short Tenure Award at Alabama, but that's just me being a petty fan.
No, I think DeBoer, if he has any success there, I think he's going to be on like every single coaching job in the NFL. Like it'll pop up. So I think that's where he ends up anyway.
Yep. Ryan Willie, $2 super chat. Thank you, sir. Camp Randall named the field after Alvarez. Is that Barry Alvarez? Am I not mistaken?
That's Barry Alvarez. Yeah. Isn't he? Okay. I think he's still the AD there, or he was. I don't remember.
But long time serving at Wisconsin, surely. And
yeah.
You don't often see administrators, I guess, named after unless they're like exceptionally long tenured at one school. And normally they name some academic building after them, but it makes sense.
Yeah, and I mean, like, it's called Camp Randall because they used to be an Army base.
Indeed.
University. So
it's got one of the more interesting stories as far as old school stadiums go.
Exactly.
Ryan with a follow-up to his earlier super chat. After Michigan just decided to sell beer, Wisconsin's certainly going to follow them. Yeah, you don't want to be the one out in the cold when all of your Midwest counterparts are selling the good stuff.
Your Midwest counterparts and your West Coast counterparts? Like, come on.
Yeah, I've heard there's some very good breweries out in the Midwest that we need to try on our away adventures to watch the Huskies. So I'll certainly be taking suggestions from you, Ryan.
Yeah, definitely be taking in some suggestions on that because you got to try a brewery.
Indeed. So a little bit of a follow-up, our good friend Paul Feinbaum. I hate giving him more airtime than he deserves, which is nothing because he's the biggest SEC shill out there. But I find it almost comical at this point. Like I said, this is the off-season silliness. He has to bring up USC and Deion Sanders when he's not talking SEC. He's got to make his ESPN bosses happy. If you don't watch the whole clip, and I sadly sat through it, he both praises Riley, thinks he's a good coach and he'll improve from the previous season, and then he says Deion will have a worse record than his previous season, but also says USC will fire Riley and hire Deion. Please explain to me how that checks out in any way other than Paul Feinbaum trying to get some clicks.
No, this is Paul Feinbaum trying to save face after Lane Kiffin got onto him while live on TV.
Yeah, I mean that was one of my. Lane Kiffin is a masterful troll. He's certainly S tier as far as college coaches on social media.
I don't follow any college coaches, but I follow him. because he is legit a troll, and he does a great job at it. This is Fine Bob being Fine Bob, though. First Take is First Take. They talk about three things: LeBron, the Cowboys, and whatever else there is that kind of becomes important. And like I said, this suddenly is important. USC, no clue why, but let's talk about USC. And it's like, I don't know how you can sit there a week ago and say, well, I would have fired him at the end of last year, and then turn around this week and go, oh, well, they're going to be better this year, but I'd still fire him. Like,
yeah, his excuse was the standard is elevated in Los Angeles, which I agree it's higher than your average school, but we both know that you're not USC in recent years is not Michigan or Ohio State. You know, you're not firing dudes after 10-win seasons.
Let's also talk about who the AD is. Now, when Jen Cohen talks, people listen. Jen is a very smart athletic director. People around the country respect her. But the one thing that you can knock her on is she does not fire anybody. It takes an effort for her to fire somebody. She didn't even technically fire Jimmy Lake.
It was rumored that she put a lot of pressure on Riley to overhaul the staff, or she would be calling for his job.
Yeah, it's $100. I think someone said it's like $100 million to buy out his contract, though, right now.
I mean, if anyone's got the money and they're motivated enough, it's USC. They got the money to do crazy stuff like that.
But I also ask, like, the question has to be asked: would she fire him at the end of the year if they win 8 or 9 games in a new conference? I don't know if she would, because it's a new conference, new quarterback. I think for him, success has to be measured. Like you said, success is measured differently in Los Angeles because, and it's both the Trojans and the Bruins that have this problem because it is LA. Folks in LA do not want to go to games where you're losing. They won't show up.
There's only 2 teams that draw in Los Angeles, no matter how they're doing, and it's the Lakers and the Dodgers. That's it.
And it's mostly because the Lakers and the Dodgers are usually halfway decent. They're usually over 500. So people know I'll go to the game. They might win. They're going to be in a playoffs. They're always in the playoff race. The other teams, if they're out of it, they're not going to watch football. Like, and in LA, like, most people are probably Raiders fans in the NFL anyway.
Yeah.
So there's so much to do in LA, and we say this to people all the time. There's way too much to do in LA. You have to get the attention. This is why the Yankees and the Mets, the Jets and the Giants, like, are constantly putting pressure on themselves to be great. Like, everybody in New York knows if the team is bad, they're not going to show up. The Brooklyn Nets are finding this out the hard way. They moved to Brooklyn from New Jersey, and they have a hard time filling the arena because they're so bad some years. So you have to keep their attention. You have to do it.
And we'll touch on the Big Ten media. We'll touch on the Big Ten media poll later, but I'd like to throw it out to chat. Do you think 8 wins, regardless of who they're to or what the score was, do you think 8 wins, no matter who the wins are, is enough to save Riley's job? Assuming he's not, putting another Heisman in there and they're not doing anything super crazy postseason. This is my question to chat. Does 8-4 and they don't make the playoff, is that good enough to save Riley's job in year 1 in the Big Ten? I would hazard to say yes, as long as you're not having like blowout losses to UCLA and Notre Dame. I think that's enough to keep his job. 7 wins, you're getting into the danger zone there for Lincoln Riley.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. Miller Moss, I believe, is going to be the new starting quarterback, right?
Yep.
And I said this to somebody, and I don't want anybody who's a Florida State fan to get mad who's watching, but I'm going to bring up something very, very easy. Lincoln Riley did not hold that kid back against Louisville, and that kid lit Louisville up.
Yep.
Because I think had Florida State let their quarterback just, instead of like playing a safe game, just let their quarterback play quarterback, it's a different story. I think Lincoln Riley doing that was to see what he had, but also I think it put unnecessary pressure on him to do well again this year. But you look at their schedule, it's favorable. Penn State comes to them. I believe they go to Ohio. I believe they'll be in Columbus. They don't play Michigan. They don't, they have Oregon on the schedule. They're at Washington, but everything's basically it's a favorable schedule. I mean, they get Rutgers on Friday night at 11 p.m. Eastern. So for him, it's if the defense improves, they're going to be fine. The O-line must be better because the O-line was bad last year, but we may not know if that was Caleb Williams or just bad O-line play. But Miller Moss is the new quarterback. He lit up Louisville, who was a pretty decent defense last year in the ACC. I mean, he lit them up. I think he threw like 6 or 7 touchdowns. It was ridiculous.
Yeah.
Lincoln Riley's offense works. If Lincoln Riley fixes the defense, which is what he went out and did, and like you said, there was some undue pressure, like you need to fix the defense, we're going to fire you. Basically, I get this guy's your friend, fire him. But Alex Grinch was not good. They hired the guy from UCLA. His defenses are good. If they just improve, I think somebody said, if they just improve by like 2 or 3 yards per play, they give up like they don't give up like 30 points per game. Like
that's
20. It's ridiculous.
That's not a small task going into a new conference. 2 to 3 yards a play is quite the difference.
But when you're playing the Indianas, the Purdues, and the Minnesotas, you're going to make it up. Like you're going to make it up. Their issue is can they keep the explosive offenses like a USC or an Ohio State or Penn State. I mean, Penn State doesn't have an explosive offense. Penn State's going to score. Can you keep up with them? Can you just, can you shut that down? Because your defense last year made really bad offenses look good.
Yeah. So, early returns on if 8 wins gets it done or not. I would think so. Sooner in Texas. Is Tebow fired immediately? Tebow. I'm confused about this one. If this is some inside reference to Riley, I know you're probably not a fan of him. Sooner in Texas, but I guess I'm not understanding your comment. Clint Moses, our Beaver friend, 8 wins is the gold standard. I mean, 8 wins is a solid season in any power conference, but as we said, the standard in LA and a new conference, their boosters want them competing for the conference title more years than not. And I don't know if that means they'll have the patience of going 7 wins. So 8 wins good enough, big payout, but it's a brutal schedule. Absolutely.
It is.
Everybody's got a brutal schedule. Holy good gravy.
So I was backward. They're at Michigan, not Ohio, but
that's tough.
The opening game is the one that's going to be like it's LSU in Vegas. September 1st, you're playing LSU in Vegas. You can't lose that game because the last time you played an SEC opponent, Alabama beat the crap out of you.
Well, I think that's maybe the caveat then is I don't think it's a deal breaker if they lose to LSU in Vegas. However, you got to put a competitive effort on the field. You cannot get blown out. You got to be in that game late. Even if you lose by, let's say, 10 in the end, you know what I mean? You cannot have what happened against Bama happen against LSU.
No.
I mean, a victory would be great. It sets you on the right path, gets you ahead of the 8 ball. But I don't think a loss is a deal breaker.
No, here you go. LSU week 1, win or loss.
Yeah.
I actually think they're going to win that game because LSU's defense is not good. To be a little honest, their defense last year was like USC's bad.
LSU's tough though. They're like Oregon. They always have athletes at every level.
Where they're going to have where USC will struggle in that game is the trenches. Everybody struggles in the trenches against the SEC teams. That's just a given.
Very true.
Week 2 is Utah State at home. That's a win. I mean, Utah State just fired their coach last week. So then they're at Michigan. So
I call that a loss.
They could be 1-2 3 weeks in. Then they're at home with Wisconsin. I think they'll win at home against Wisconsin.
I wouldn't shock me if Wisconsin wins that one, but hard travel to the West Coast for them.
Yeah, I think they'll get the 2-2. Then they're at Minnesota. That's 3-2. Then they're at home against Penn State.
Oh no.
I think they take a loss there. Well,
I
see,
don't
that's
know.
the thing. I don't know. I'm gonna say they get the win close, but they'll win. So
I'm selfishly hoping that the Washington game is the James Riley brain fart game, but that's a whiteout, so I doubt it. But USC, I could see Penn State laying an egg, just going to USC. They're due for one every year for some reason.
They're due for one. Then they're at Maryland. That's a win.
Should be a win.
So they're 7 weeks in, 5-2. At home against Rutgers Friday night. Like I said, that's 8 p.m. Pacific time. For whatever stupid reason.
Oh,
that's going to be a win.
I'm sorry to say this, but your guys are playing like midnight, their time. That's rough.
That's rough. Like I that's a win. So they're 6-2. Then they're at Washington. Flip a coin on that one because they
traditionally
crap the bed in Seattle. So we'll say they lose 7-3.
Yeah, traditionally in the past 20 years or so, it really has been a coin flip between the Huskies and USC.
This is where it gets tricky because the last 2 weeks, the next week or the last 3 games, home with Nebraska, that'll be a win. Okay, so now they're 7-3.
Maybe. Gosh, we'll get to this later more. Well,
let me just say the last 2 games are at the Rose Bowl against UCLA, and then they finished the year with the Irish. So 8-4 or 7-5 is a legit possibility right now, but they have the potential to be like 9-3, which is stupid. Like they could be 10-2. No Oregon, no Ohio State. They could theoretically be 10-2.
Well, we'll circle back around on this.
We're going to circle back around because I don't know who I'd pick at these games.
Well, I want to bring it up because I've got some thoughts on the Big Ten media poll that came out, or I guess it's like an unofficial one. And just my first impression, I'll kind of get into why. I think spots basically 3 through 13 of that poll, you could sell me on any of those teams getting to 8 wins. I think it's just a total crapshoot. So
that poll is the real poll.
Okay.
I do know Washington was voted on.
They were 10th.
They were 10th, but they were voted to finish between 4th and 16th.
Yeah, so no one knows.
No one knows. The middle of the conference is so that literally the only thing they can agree on is 1, 2, and 3, which is Ohio State, Oregon, Penn State. Everybody else, until you get to the very bottom of the conference, which is I think it was UCLA. And who was dead last? I think it was Purdue. I can't remember who was at the bottom.
I'll bring it up for you here in a minute.
Yeah, if you can bring it up. But every single one of those teams between 4 and 16 were all mixed. It's an average. So they just kind of were like, oh God, okay, well the average, they appeared at 10th most of the time, which is it's an insane thing to think about. This is how convoluted. Like, you imagine a super conference trying to, who's going to be first through 32? Good luck. You'll never figure it out. Like,
pull names out of a hat.
Yeah.
Texas clarifying that TBO, his acronym, is for the blank out west, permanent for he who shall not be named. You guys are creative with the nicknames. We haven't come up with too many good ones for DeBoer.
Well, we're not going to go there with DeBoer because his daughter is at UW playing softball. So,
well, even beyond that, I mean, I've been clear. My gripe with DeBoer isn't him taking the Bama job. It's one of the premier jobs in football. It's just how he went about doing it.
Yeah, it's how he went. Of course, Ryan disagrees.
Ryan, if you told me right now, straight up, Wisconsin beats USC,
I believe you.
We're not saying it's impossible. No. It's just it's a long trip out west, and USC does play well at home. I mean, you get home field advantage. I think still applies and is possibly amplified by these cross country trips. Like, for example, Washington going to Rutgers for our friend Keep Chopping. I think that's a coin flip game. I really do. Like, Rutgers is much improved, and that's a long trip for the Huskies to start their Big Ten road games.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot to this. One, we don't know how good USC's defense is.
Yeah.
2, Wisconsin traditionally plays like trash out west. I mean, we could go into the Pullman fiasco. We don't need to, but the last time they were on the West Coast was against Wazoo, and they got beat. So, and they're just, USC, for whatever reason, USC is really, really good historically against Big Ten schools. They don't have a losing record against any of them.
Well, that's going back all time. I'd be curious what that looks like in let's say BCS era since.
Yeah, it's still a winning record. That's what's so funny. They still have a winning record. Pete Carroll never lost to a Big Ten school. Yeah, they're not.
Man,
they are bad in the BCS era against the SEC. That's where they've been bad, but not historically against the Big Ten. They're just really, they just get up for those. But yeah, Almighty Finn has way more faith in our Huskies than we do.
Yep. I'd like to say a shout out to our friend Jackson Johnson, one of the co-hosts of the Young Guns College Football Show. Go check them out. They do awesome stuff, and been chatting with him for a long time here on the college football sphere. So nice to see you in chat, Jackson.
Yeah, good to see you. Wisconsin has a bye in between Alabama and USC. I mean, it depends on how bad Alabama beats them up.
Yeah. Clint Moses, curious to see if USC starts buying Big Ten coaches. Yeah, I mean, maybe they go full Chip Kelly to Ohio State and start snapping up more than just their crosstown rivals. That'll be curious to see.
Greg Schiano from Rutgers, give him a raise.
Oh, goodness. Don't give our friend Keep Chopping a heart attack. He's living the good life with Schiano's recruiting right now.
I know. I'm like, my thing with Rutgers is the quarterback play better this year, because you can't run quarterback sweep right and left and expect to beat everybody. It doesn't work after a while.
Real quick, we got some got to take care of business. We see some more of our members hopping into chat. So if you would like to become a member, we will show you how to do so. But Wild Ute just threw out his long anticipated Kansas to the SEC comparison. It's not as silly as it seems. Ute does a great job and breaks down all the numbers. And feel free to hop in there if you're a member, watch that video after this one and comment. Tell him where he's right, tell him where he's wrong. But he's going to start coming out with that SEC series. And even if I have disagreements with maybe his particular how he weights certain categories, it's really cool to kind of just see how certain things stack up. And there's almost always one or two surprises. But I would encourage everyone who's a member to get over there. We're also starting up member live streams. We did one last Wednesday. I'm not certain if we have one scheduled this week, but I think we're going to start getting those to be more frequent as we're heading towards the season, providing you a little bit more value for your membership out there, because we greatly, greatly appreciate the support. And if you'd like to join us and become a member, here is how you can do so.
Want to become a member of the College Football Mafia family? Simply select the Join button from our homepage. There are several options with their own unique benefits to choose from. You can also set yourself to auto-accept gifted membership by selecting the gift settings options as shown.
And thank you so much again to some of our members. I saw some people hopping in here, like our friend, the FSU fan, Almighty Finn. Ohio State beat USC in the Cotton Bowl. First victory since the 75 Rose Bowl. Ohio State and USC have a very, very long history, including several Rose Bowl meetings, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. USC, so much.
Oh goodness, Ryan Willie he's feeling his Badgers, man. He's already got the Camp Randall beers flowing, and he is saying Bucky will beat Bama. I'm cheering for you, my friend. I'm pulling for you hard, but that's a tall order no matter what Alabama team takes the field.
I think I will say this. Alabama's not going to go in there and be intimidated by the anything inside Camp Randall.
No.
That's not going to affect them not one bit. But you know what? I really wish this game was being played in November and not September. So, but yeah.
Well, we'll see. I mean, there's always one or two shockers every season, and if there's ever a year for it, it's this one with all the movement and new coaches, etc.
Yeah.
So I'm pulling hard for you for the Badgers to upset the Tide there.
I mean, Alabama's breaking in a new offensive system
without their OC.
They have an OC who hasn't called plays since he was at Indiana, and Grubb was supposed to be that guy, and he's now in Seattle with the Seahawks. So we don't know a whole lot about what we know what their offense will look like. It's Washington's offense from last year. Anybody wants to know, go back, watch the tape. You're going to see the same kind of play calls and stuff like that. But Grubb was a really good play caller. So I don't expect that level of play calling, but I do expect maybe a little bit more running here and there because it is Alabama. They got to be able to run the ball. So.
And thank you so much, Ryan Willie. Gifted 1 College Football Mafia membership. And I am happy to see that it went to Channel Regular. Shows up with us almost every Monday, Timothy Green. It is so good to have you as a member, my friend. And if possible, consider it paying forward to someone else. And right after the stream, please go check out our members' content. And like I said, the SEC comparison videos are coming out. And yeah, it's exciting to have you on board, Timothy. But thank you so much again, Ryan. We got you all fired up. I think we've been talking a lot of Wisconsin ball, and it's getting Ryan all excited for the season. I got to say, I'm starting to get excited too. It feels like it's just around the corner.
Yeah, I they're getting ready. I think the players start reporting in like a week or two. So I think Washington's report on the 5th, I want to say, or like shortly after that. So a lot of these teams are going to start kind of ramping up. NFL teams are already in gear and practicing in front of fans. It's going to be a great summer. It's finally here. Football is almost finally here.
And speaking of just around the corner, I saw our friend Clint Moses mentioned it before that the ACC marketing, I had to bring this up. It's been stuck on my mind because holy good gravy, are they feeling themselves? I'm getting some awful George Kliavkov vibes from this. The strong, toughest non-conference schedule in the country, which all they did was open themselves up to criticism of their conference schedule difficulty. Becky, I don't know who they're hiring for their marketing team, but yeah, they really should reevaluate.
Well, I mean, they might have the toughest non-conference schedule, but why do you have a tough non-conference schedule? That's stupid.
I would say it's mostly Florida and Miami because they both schedule all the like Florida, and I think
Florida's playing. I think all 3 Florida schools this year.
Yeah,
like that's insane on their part, but they don't have to leave the state of Florida.
Do they claim Stanford playing Notre Dame as non-conference?
Yeah.
Oh goodness.
Notre Dame is not. That's the other thing. Notre Dame does not count for conference games. They count like in your non-conference. So that's why it was like it's kind of stupid, but it is what it is. Yeah, Clemson has a tough game. Florida State has a tough game. I think Duke actually has a tough game. Miami obviously has one. North Carolina is playing Minnesota.
Daniel Gygax rightly points out that the mighty West Virginia Mountaineers are taking on Pitt, boosting that non-conference schedule. Absolutely, Daniel.
I'm not gonna like trash the ACC because it's stupid to like why do that?
It's
the
not
conference the conference right now can't do anything right in a lot of people's eyes, and it's like take the glasses off for a second. Like if they had the toughest non-conference schedule in the country, it's easy to prove or disprove. But it's also easy to say, you put Notre Dame as part of your non-conference. Well, how would it not be the toughest? Like 8 of your schools are playing them. Like it's silly to have this conference. Like 6 schools are playing them. That's silly.
A little bit of double dealing on that one.
Yeah.
I mean, even if it's true by some, mathematical metric, you couldn't think of anything else to market your conference. Like conference of quarterbacks, like, okay.
Oh, no, they are the conference of quarterbacks this year. That makes sense.
I think the SEC is actually ahead on NFL quarterbacks, but they get to claim, the Cal quarterbacks like Jared Goff, et cetera, et cetera. Maybe you claim Andrew Luck all of a sudden, even though he doesn't play anymore. I don't know, but
no.
Come up with a little bit better marketing.
They're talking about the actual quarterback play this year.
Okay.
So they probably have the best quarterbacks in the country. Like they have a couple of really, really good ones. I think Dylan Gabriel, is the best quarterback in the country, and he's at Oregon. It pains me to say that. But Florida State, DJU is there after a great year at Oregon State.
My
Miami got a good one from Wazoo.
I'll sound like a bitter Husky fan, but I don't think Cam Ward's very good. I think he's talented. I just don't think he's very good.
I think Cam Ward's legit. I think he's really, really good. I think that
on that one.
Now, my thing is this, and Miami fans, plug your ears. I'm going to say it out loud. I think your head coach is going to hold him back, and it's going to be stupid and pointless to have this conversation because he's going to get held back. So I have to wait and see. But he, talent-wise, next level. But this is the same guy who claims to say he developed Justin Herbert, but Justin Herbert did not develop under him. He kind of regressed. So,
yeah, I still can't wrap my head around Cristobal and whether or not I think he's a good coach. I know he's a good recruiter, but is he a good coach? Well, I have no idea.
You don't want him as your coach in the last 2 minutes of games. Good God.
Yeah.
And he played in the NFL. That's why it makes no sense that he doesn't know that, I get it, you're a lineman. And no, he recruits well. He develops offensive linemen like nobody's business.
Yeah. Thoughts and prayers for the sanity of our good friend Rock and Rant.
Yeah. Sorry, Rock. He's going to hold back the quarterback. That's the issue that always came up was quarterback play was never that great. And it's well, what's the common denominator? Oh, yeah, it's him, because once he leaves, wide receivers are we can go right into it. They just had a wide receiver taken in the 4th round, but when he was playing under Cristobal, he was trash.
Yep.
So, says everything you need to know.
Yep. Sticking with the ACC, I know we're trying to pledge ourselves to the no realignment talk unless there's big news, but I would qualify this as somewhat big news. We leave our other good friends to dive into the nitty-gritty of court cases, etc. And but I felt like this was worth bringing up, that their FSU and Clemson are not expected to submit their notice of withdrawal by August 15th, meaning the earliest they could join another conference would be the 25-26 season. I think that's pretty big news, because there were rumors that they might submit even without a clear destination and basically have that hanging over their heads the whole season.
It would be the 26-27 season that they'd leave.
Oh, okay. I see.
So this is basically for next year. And that's not a shock. We can get into it a little bit. Apparently there's a new judge. They're getting a new judge in one of the 2 cases. I think the Florida.
Yeah. I haven't dove completely into the nitty-gritty of the court cases, as I said, but I felt like this was a pretty big development.
No, it's big news. It means that the conference is going to be stable for the next couple of years. So as much we can talk all we want about who's going where, it means nothing now, because we know they can't go anywhere for at least 2 more years. So we just need to sit back and kind of let the court cases run their deal. And unless there's a settlement between now and then, there won't be anybody leaving before then. So, and
settlements
if they lose, and they can still technically lose, if the ACC feels like they're going to beat them, they won't settle. So, everything is just kind of we're right back to square one, essentially.
I think this certainly draws a lot more eyes toward ESPN and what they're going to do with that 2025 deadline to extend the contract, and it gives a little more weight to the idea that they'll either extend it outright or possibly extend it with a settlement, including a buyout and an exit clause. But Florida State and Clemson might be in the ACC, perhaps not for the full duration of the contract, and past 2030. What is it, 2034? It's a long time.
Yeah, it's a long time. I mean, that's part of the reason why I get why they want out of it, because they're they're at that point where they will get left behind in 5 years. Like, I get it.
Yeah.
Like, I get it. But I said this to somebody and they got really, really mad when I said, there's no guarantee the Big 12 gets a contract again. There's no guarantees. The only two that we know will get a contract will be the Big 10 and the SEC.
And even then, there's no guarantee the value will maintain where it's at. A lot changes in that amount of time.
Exactly. Things can change. They could suddenly devalue them, or they could value them higher, or say, hey, nope, you've maxed out. Like, we're not doing anything else. And it can be a situation where you're like, you could add whoever the heck you want. We're not giving you more money than you already get. So that's why I said, like, there's a lot to it. And, you know, like, I also said this to that person. I said, ESPN is not doing anything right now for the ACC. If you look, they're not doing anything for the ACC in terms, like, for advertising, like ACC on ABC.
Right.
That's all gone to the SEC. Fox is going to do the same exact thing for the Big Ten. Eventually, that's why I said the two conferences are going to have to, like, they've got to get, this is where I think the difference is the commissioners and how they view TV deals. Phillips is a little more old school, but, you know, Yormack is more like, he came from the NBA where he saw firsthand all this stuff. So the money has to be there, but also we have to take a break, think out loud here and say, where can the money come from? So as much as people laughed about Apple and Amazon and the CW and blah, 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 that is the future of anybody not named the Big Ten or the SEC, for you to get the most money and maximize it.
Yeah. And for the Pac-12 struggles in Wazoo and Oregon State, they've leaned into it, and I actually credit them for getting the best they could given the situation. I think they actually landed in a decent spot.
They got a great deal. When I told you guys, I said their deal is going to be better than you think.
Considering the circumstances, for sure.
I mean, they're on TV. Every game is on national TV now. Every game will be on TV, whether it's Fox or FS1 or the CW. They're on TV, and their stuff is going to get everywhere. And, you know, ESPN and Fox are going to promote their two biggest moneymakers because they're spending the most for them. We've seen it with the NFL, and we've seen it with baseball. We've seen it with hockey. You know what I'm saying? Like, you see it with the professional sports. Like, ESPN pays for hockey, but in October they're not advertising hockey. They're advertising baseball. They're not advertising basketball as much. They're advertising baseball because it's getting close to the end of the year and they want people to watch the playoffs. So and the NFL's on, so the NFL is going to jump ahead too. So you see it all the time. This is going to be a weird 2 years, but I'm telling you now, I don't know where they're going to go. I don't know if they know where they're going to go.
No, I mean, it's unclear. Our friend Shonsky, I kind of popped this up for a second. Seems to disagree greatly when he's talking hundreds of millions of dollars. The exit date means absolutely nothing.
It means everything.
Disagree because it's sunk, it's sunk cost, it's lost opportunity, and obviously that's the balance. How much are you willing to pay up front now, and how can you recoup it on the back end? If that math doesn't work out, then no, you don't leave, for whatever some crazy amount is. The money has to pencil out that you are going to generate more money where you're going versus where you're at.
And the longer this goes, the less money they would theoretically, if I were Florida State or Clemson, the longer it goes, the less I'm willing to pay for my buyout, because we've lost years off the contract. I'm not paying you for 2 whole years. So if it's let's say it's $250 million right now. After 2 years, I'm not paying you $250 million. I might pay you 180 or 190. I'm going to take my contract money and take some of it off. Like, it behooves them to let it go longer.
Yeah, I'm going to take my ball and go home.
But that's where you're not starting it at 250 anymore. You have to start it at like 200. because I'm not going to pay you 200. Like it works out better for them to get a better settlement, and a negotiation. So
the math in reality is a lot more complicated than that, obviously, but it is that simple. It's got to pencil out that these schools, they owe a financial duty to their students and their membership to generate the maximum amount of value possible. And if that requires a big payment up front to get it, then they'll do it. They'll get the okay. But so far, that doesn't appear to be what's happening, because they don't seem to have a guaranteed spot in one of these other conferences. And from the limited information we do have, there has been no discussions about adding them as a full value member, even if they were to be added.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of a deal breaker, because they can't survive on partial shares for the duration of this contract if they're paying a giant buyout.
And I mean, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but you're not going to get a full share if there's 3 years left on the contract.
Yeah. Without Notre Dame, I don't see any of this being possible in the short term.
Nope. Even with Notre Dame is going to have to sign. See, the thing, that's where it gets even more complicated. Notre Dame is going to have to sign a contract in between now and next year.
Very, very curious.
So,
man, this stuff all comes around full circle.
It all comes around full circle. Everything is, like I said, what people said, and people laughed at me when I said everything is slowly working its way into the ACC's power. Everything is slowly getting into their power. They are absolutely going to have all leverage at some point. Now that can change, but right now they're gaining leverage over Florida State, Clemson, and anybody else who wants to leave or is thinking of it.
Yeah.
So I'm like, this is
quick sidebar. Yeah, quick sidebar, Ryan. We there's been some membership issues in chat. Ryan, we just want to appreciate the generosity. We know that times are tough for people financially out there, so any gifted memberships or super chats, it really does help us run the show on the back end. And we like making members content for you guys and giving you some value for supporting the show. So thank you again so much. And speaking of finances, we'll kind of tie it into the ACC thing, but the Big Ten finally getting with the times, and this is their first ever title sponsor for the Big Ten championship. It was bound to happen at some point, but I think we're going to see branding attached to everything now. We talk about branding your fields and branding your practice jerseys and whatever. And, next it's going to be the Under Armour, shoelaces provided by blah, blah, blah company. I think it's going to get overboard, but they're going to find every financial opportunity they can. What point do you think it kind of like turns fans off to just the over branding where it becomes like European hockey league jerseys?
I don't think it's going to get to that.
If you've never seen them, they're quite over the top.
They're way over the top. I mostly because I don't think it'll get to that, because I think it'll be like soccer where they would just sell to one and be like, that's it. However, I don't see it being like all. I think you'll see more advertising inside the stadium. I truthfully didn't even know Discover was the Big Ten championship sponsor. I had no idea.
This is news. It was just recently.
Yeah, it's renewed their partnership with Discover, and I guess Discover is now doing the championship. That's kind of what I got from that.
Title sponsor of the championship game. First.
That's what I was like. I thought they already had a sponsor, because I think the SEC does. Pac-12 did. At least I thought the Pac-12 did. Maybe I'm having a Mandela effect here. I'm like, this could be a complete Mandela effect where I thought all this was already happening and it never was. So now I'm like, really confused. But I love it. I think it's great. I love the logo.
Solid, clean.
It's a clean logo, and
it's not as over the top as some of the bowl game logos, which I appreciate.
Yeah, that's why I like the Rose Bowl logo. It was the Rose Bowl presented by whatever, and you would never know who the sponsor was because it's in small print underneath the logo of the Rose Bowl. So I like it. I love it, actually. I mean, I really do.
We got possibly breaking news, unless Tony's pulling my leg. Did Yogi Roth get a job?
Yes, Yogi got a job.
Oh, is it with the Big Ten? Please tell me it was the Big Ten.
He is going to be doing some stuff with the Big Ten.
Let's go. Love me some Yogi Roth.
Yeah, he's doing some stuff on the Big Ten network this year. He's not working anything. Yeah, Yogi Roth is joining the Big Ten. It was announced this morning. But yeah, he's on his way to Indianapolis, he said, to get to work. So
very cool.
Yeah, he is. I knew he was going to do some of the games, but I didn't know, like, because he does, he's just like, I didn't know if he got hired or what, but they had said that he was going to do a couple of games earlier, like about a month ago, but now, like, no, he's officially, because they can't officially hire him like full on now. So
yeah, to everyone out there who
for anything else.
To everyone out there who never saw Yogi on the Pac-12 network, he was one of the on-air talent on the Pac-12 network, like the studio commentators and stuff were legit. It was high quality. They're really insightful, beyond just they're the anti-Paul Feinbaum. It's not hot takes. Like, they're giving you real insight and some behind the scenes kind of cool info and just down to earth. And look, a lot of them are alumni of Pac-12 schools, and they would trash on their own schools if they deserved it.
Well,
they told it like it was.
I mean, our West Virginia fans already don't like Yogi because he played at Pitt.
Yeah, but we'll forgive him for that. It's okay.
I mean, I don't have to forgive him. He was a coach. He's
one
of
the good ones. To Daniel,
he coached with Pete Carroll at USC
and Timothy Green out there. He's one of the good ones. He's good despite the fact he was a Pitt Panther.
Yeah. No, he is really good about. I met him weirdly when he comes to Seattle. He takes the light rail from the airport to his hotel all the time. So
there you go.
Run into him on the light rail a couple of times and chatted with him. Nicest guy. He's a really nice guy. He's honest about his opinion when it comes to players. He does do the that quarterback, the top 12 players, the high school quarterback thing, the Elite 11 or whatever.
Elite 11, yeah.
Yeah, he is one of the coaches and mentors for that. So he knows his stuff. He watches tons of video. Trust me, the Pac-12 folks all love this guy, and he's the one guy we're like, yeah, please hire him, please hire him, please hire him.
He'll be just as plugged into the Big Ten, I have no doubt.
Oh, no doubt. Like, he was already plugged into the Big Ten. And
Timothy Green said he's pretty good on the Pac-12 network, and of course, directly underneath Daniel Gygax. I won't watch it. I respect the Pitt hatred. It runs deep, my friend.
Yeah. And yes, Yogi did do an athletics game a few years ago. That was rather good.
Yeah.
That was rather good. Non-Lou Holtz type. What is a Lou Holtz type?
I feel like that's a bad thing, even though it shouldn't be. Just the way it's being presented.
I mean, Lou Holtz was senile,
I'm not going to try and do the goofy accent.
I can't do the accent. I can't do it. And I try all the time, and I can't do it. And I can't, because he has the lisp and everything. And I feel like if I do it, that I'm being mean to people with lisps. So it's like, God, I don't want to do it. So.
Yeah, it always sounds like he's talking with either marshmallows or a couple of Werther's Originals swirling around in his mouth.
Probably Werther's Originals. He is old enough that would be the candy in his bowl if you were your grandpa.
Alrighty, everybody, we're coming up on an hour. It's been kind of a variety hour, trying to touch on a lot of things, but it is Media Day season, and that's kind of what I want to close out with. We've touched on that, but Big Ten Media Days is obviously a huge one for us. It'll be our first time kind of seeing what our schools look like in the new conferences, and you get to take that super awkward family photo with all the coaches standing around. It's quite a good time. I actually enjoy these things in kind of a self-punishment kind of way.
Yeah, I think they're fun. I know the administrators hate, the administrators appreciate them more than like the coaches and players do, because they're getting together and actually like talking stuff. Talking out a lot of stuff. But that Thursday lineup looks good. God, you know what? To be a fly on the wall, like in the back area where these guys are all like hanging out, God, that would be so much fun. But the Thursday slate is probably the best of the three. So
yeah, Illini Ted, you asked a while ago. I was getting around to it. I promised. Yes, I'll definitely be plugged in for media days. I won't be able to watch it live. I don't have cable or anything like that, but all of the best stuff comes out in clips anyways. We'll see it.
Yeah,
I'll certainly watch a lot of the coaches' interviews. I'm always curious to watch.
Yeah, I like the coaches' interviews. I like the player interviews. I really get into when the athletic directors are talking, because the athletic directors they're talking like actual like sports and stuff. Like they're getting into like the nitty gritty, because you're like, oh, all of these coaches are going to say the same crap over and over again. They're not going to say anything to put anything like a bulletin board material. They're not going to do any of that. They're going to respect each other.
Yeah,
but
it's kind of play nice time for everyone coming
nice.
in. Oh, we're all friends! Yay!
Yeah, like oh yeah, but the administrators they kind of get into the nitty gritty, and they'll start saying stuff. And yeah, Dannon being there on Wednesday, I have a feeling that.
Yeah, Braska Rascal rightly points out Dannon and Nebraska glad they're not on the same day as Washington.
Yeah, Dr. Kosei is there.
That's a little awkward.
That's going to go pretty well. And the other thing was Ohio State spurned Pat Chun. So that might.
Yeah, but that one I don't think was on as bad of terms.
Oh no, Pat Chun was mad.
Well, I think he's mad because he wanted the job, but it's not like the guy they hired instead of him was unqualified.
No,
didn't they? Wasn't it both? Weren't they both alumni? If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, they're both alumni, but Pat was like mad because he actually worked for Ohio State fairly recently.
Like if Washington loses Chun, it'll be to Ohio State. Like I'm firmly convinced by that.
I'm firmly convinced of that too. Like if Chun goes anywhere ever again, it's Ohio State, or he got hired to be like, or he got fired. Like,
yeah, I mean, it's not that we're up here saying Washington's the end all be all, but the only real rung above a department that's well funded like Washington is the Blue Bloods. And if he's going to take a blue blood, it's going to be his alma mater at Ohio State. So, but yes, indeed, it will be quite the awkward conversation if Dannon and Kosei and possibly Fish run into each other in the halls. That'll be just real awkward smiles and handshakes.
Can you imagine if DeBoer had left? Let's talk about this. UCLA is there on Wednesday. Yeah. Their old head coach is there on Tuesday.
And if DeBoer went to Michigan, that would make this thing 10 times more awkward, but twice as funny.
It would absolutely be the most ridiculous thing. Like, God, there's so much this week that I'm like, I want to see. I want all the tea. But I know, like, Chip Kelly's not going to go there because he's an offensive coordinator. But, man, if Chip Kelly were going, I would be like, oh, my God.
Yeah. Chip Kelly's a pretty straight shooter as far as his interviews go. He's not real big on hot takes.
No, but it would be very, like you said, it would add to the awkwardness. And I mean, like, I do want to point out, I probably would have left too. UCLA, LSU is playing both USC and UCLA this year. I didn't know that until just now.
Yes.
I just looked that up because I was like, when do they play Ohio State? And UCLA does not play Ohio State. I was like, darn it. And then I happened to see, they do have LSU. Good God. I would have quit too.
Yep. We will certainly be looking forward to that coming up this week. We'll have a lot to go over. It's nice to finally have some kind of meat and potatoes football stuff to talk about on next week's show. Expedition Greg popping in late. Hello, my friend. Gerard Jones, our Buckeye fan. Yeah, we were just talking about media days. We know it's going to be fun for Ryan Day. I'm sure they'll try and pitch him all these questions about, Ohio State versus Oregon, and I expect him to completely deflect to Michigan, which would be funny because let's be honest, if there's anything on Ryan Day's radar, it's got to be beating Michigan, even over winning a conference.
I would assume that if Ryan Day can't beat Michigan and they lose that, who cares? So they beat Oregon, but if he can't beat Michigan and it ends up being Michigan and Oregon in the Big Ten championship, I don't know if he survives. Even if they make the playoff at 11-1, I don't know if he survives and keeps his job.
What's the level below leaving Lane Kiffin on the blacktop at the airport? Whatever is below that, that's what.
Oh, the tarmac.
pushing down the creek in a kayak.
Oh, no, it was what's his name at Arizona State? Herm Edwards got fired on the field.
Yeah, whatever's below that.
Like, game was over. They're walking to the locker room, and the president and the athletic director meet him there and fire him on the spot because that's what happened.
Yeah, it'll be tough. There's a lot of pressure on Day, but he's definitely set up for success. So
He is.
I've got no ill will against the Buckeyes. So to Expedition Greg and Gerard Jones, the conference is yours for the taking, and I really do hope you beat the Duckies for us. I'd really appreciate that.
Yeah, would gladly watch them suffer a little bit more.
But yep, we got media days to look forward to this week, which I'm sure we'll recap next week. But Becky, what is your one for the road?
One for the road. Let's just say there might be some news in the coming weeks. But let's not jump the gun. Let's not don't believe everything you see, don't believe everything you hear kind of thing. And I'm just talking I don't know anything. I'm just saying stuff vaguely here. Just anything. People jumped the gun on the Florida State stuff last week to, it's not happening, blah, 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 blah. Tony Petitti's not going to come across tomorrow as cocky or anything to the media when he finally talks. I don't know if he's talking tomorrow or not, but he's not going to come off like Sankey did and all that. He might. And even if he does, it doesn't mean they're not going to the Big Ten. Doesn't mean they're not going to the SEC. Just breathe a little bit and make sure you're not being gaslit by anybody into thinking that essentially something is done, because nothing has been done. Nothing. It's because if it were done, we'd be hearing an announcement today.
Yep, absolutely. We all like to hop to it, and like I said, we're trying to step back a little bit from the realignment blender and kind of only bring you some of the more concrete things that happen, but just you got to let it play out. We all want these things to happen overnight, and as we've learned by now, especially for us as former Pac-12 fans, sometimes the car crash takes a long time to go all the way through. So, yeah, my one for the road, I swear, if they don't debut the new flyover commercial at some point during media days, I'm going to lose my mind. It is the one thing beyond actual games I am looking forward to. You got one chance to stick the landing, Big Ten. Come on, make us proud. Give us the sweet flyover commercial.
I don't think we're going to see it until I don't think we see it until 12:01 a.m. August 2nd. Which, weirdly, I'm camping that weekend, and I'm still going to turn my darn phone on and watch some Big Ten Network so I can see if the stupid commercial shows up. There's my other one for the road.
All right. Well, we'll die on that hill. I want a new flyover.
We are. I'm with you.
But thank you so much to everyone, and especially our members, for joining us. We really appreciate you being here. And we're looking forward to a really fun week. A lot of news coming out, I'm sure, and we'll chat with you all about it next week.
Yeah.
From myself and everyone here at College Football Mafia, I'm Sergeant Pickles. This is Becky.
And Montana to the Midwest.
Yeah, we'll catch you next week on the Big West Mafia Show, 8 Eastern, 5 Pacific.
Bye, guys.
Peace out, everybody.